Ravipudi of Panish, Shea, and Boyle. This case involved a 36-year-old who was a very successful Wall Street hedge fund manager.
My name is Jake Douglas. I'm attorney at Panish, Shea, and Boyle in Los Angeles, California. I began working on this case when I was asked to by some of the attorneys who had been working on it from the start, which was Rahul Ravipudi and Matt Stumpf. And that I kind of became involved in the case on the eve of trial, if you will. The case is about a young man who had spent the evening at a nightclub in Las Vegas.
And he was in Las Vegas visiting his family and went out to one of the local nightclubs, the largest nightclub and most popular nightclub actually in the country. And while he was there, he racked up a giant bill, paid his bill, and as he was leaving, the general manager of the nightclub came with 2 security guards and demanded that he remit his credit card and ID.
And at the end of the night, there was a disagreement over his bill, and he wanted to leave the club. And the security personnel at the nightclub essentially refused to let him leave, took him into an area where there were no cameras, and beat him up and injured him based on the disagreement that was going on in the club.
And they gave him a brain injury. This turned out to be a case which this hedge fund manager, he called a number of big firm lawyers and they put him in contact with a local Las Vegas attorney, and it turned out to be a case that, for obvious reasons, was too large for any individual lawyer to handle, and so he called us. So in this case, given the nature of the case and a brain injury of a hedge fund manager, the theories of liability were first an assault and battery by the general manager and the security of the nightclub. They, of course, weaved a totally different story, one of a belligerent and aggressive New York hedge fund manager who actually assaulted the general manager, which led to their physical involvement. All of these things led to a lot of fighting on liability, and then that moved into the world of causation and damages. The defense disputed whether there was even a brain injury, and then they disputed whether this alleged brain injury caused any cognitive impact.
We hired a lot of experts in this case. There was the aspect of the traumatic brain injury, so we had medical experts. There was also the issue of the hedge fund. Because he was a hedge fund manager that sustained a traumatic brain injury, his hedge fund ended up failing as a result of his brain injury. So in addition to medical experts that you would typically see in a personal injury case, we had experts in the financial fields to prove that the hedge fund failed as a result of the brain injury as well.
All of these things led to a lot of experts, a lot of medical evidence, and a lot of presentation on how to prove a brain injury in this case and its impact. And that's really where DK Global came into play here. And they were critical in us illustrating to the jury where the brain injury was.
In the way it shows up on a scan, like an MRI. And in order to illustrate that for the jury, it was good to have DK Global create some illustrations for us so you could see the subtle differences that may be obvious to an expert or a neurologist, but isn't so obvious to a juror without the illustration.
There were animations we used from DK Global, and there were other overlays of the MRIs onto the actual face of our client so that you could see that the outward bruising near the eyes was very close to where the actual brain injury and shearing was. All of these things allowed us to present to the jury seamlessly the causation and the resulting damages. As the case continued to grow, which was basically from the moment we brought this case into the office, it required so many talented lawyers in order for us to succeed. Schultz, Deborah Chang, Matt Stumpf, Jake Douglas, and others were involved in helping us get a successful outcome. And Debbie Chang, the way that she's able to work with DK Global and sort of the two together have an amazing sort of interactions and synergies so that the most amazing work product comes out of DK Global, and it's so relevant to the issues at hand and allow for the most effective damage presentation. So it really took all of the resources and all of the amazing talent at this firm to obtain this verdict. And they communicated to the defense, and the defense took the position that we were going to lose. And the most they offered before we started trial was $500,000. The most they offered during trial was $1 million. And the verdict was $160.5 million. And the jury then made a finding of malice and by managing agents of the nightclub. And we proceeded with the punitive damage phase of the trial, in which the jury awarded another $49 million. So a total of $209.5 million.